All right. Hi, everyone. We are going to let everyone trickle into the room, maybe give it one more minute because we had a pretty full waiting room as is. And then we'll get started right on time.
Hello, hello. Welcome in. Just
Yes,
filling,
thank
just
you.
filling the
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah, well, great. I know. I wish I had like entrance music, like pump
Yeah,
up going
we
up
need
to
walk-up
the
Oh,
bat.
songs.
that
Would be good.
oh yeah.
What would the entrance song be if you chose it?
That should be a good
Putting
one.
you on the spot.
What
Well,
about like Eye of the Tiger? How do we feel
I
about
was just thinking
Yeah, my kids are really into Pump Up the Jam lately, so maybe
Oh
like
yeah.
that. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I used to
Old
play
school
Eye of
rap
the Tiger
jams.
for my husband before like any exam, and we'd
Yeah.
like just
I
Yeah.
mean, you
air
can't
punch.
you can't beat it. We're also really into Who Let the Dogs Out. I mean, maybe like it just would pump up.
Wow,
Yep. Have you
that's
watched the
such a
music
throwback.
video?
Yeah, no, we don't watch the music video with the children. It's a little like maybe not rated PG, but
We did at some point, and my kids have so far been fine. But
okay.
no,
We
no,
got it
no.
from Rugrats in Paris.
No, I'm
Like it was in
thinking,
Rugrats in
sorry, I'm
Paris.
thinking of the Fox song.
Oh,
Oh, what
yeah, yeah.
does the fox say?
Yes, that music video.
I was gonna say I don't really remember the Who Let the Dogs
No,
Out music
no.
video, but I didn't remember it being too risque.
It's just some dancing. Okay,
Have to watch that after.
as people enter the room, I'm actually going to launch a poll just so it's here. I was just curious for anyone who's already entered. So where are you at? I was supposed to say where are you at? Sorry, I already typos, but where are you at in your consulting journey? Thinking about it, just started, been doing it, want to grow. I'll like kind of keep this open as we get talking and as everyone's entering, because I think there's a pretty good mix of people.
Also, the grammar totally works. Where are you in your consulting journey?
Yeah.
Nailed
Okay.
it. Nailed
Like I would have said, where are you at in your consulting journey? I don't know. Okay. All right, perfect. So I'll keep the poll open while I just actually do like the quick introduction while people trick in. But so I'm going to kick us off and then I'll end the poll after I finish. But so thanks everyone for joining. I'm Clinical Bell. I founded Both And, which is a site where I've been sharing stories of parents and others who've made the switch from corporate to consulting, along with just adjusting their current career by, doing more flexible hours, things like that. But the goal of the session today was a ton of the feedback I'd been getting from both that community, but also just friends seeing online was that there is a huge interest in consulting, fractional work, freelance work, basically what one might refer to as solopreneurship. So going out on your own and doing a service similar or maybe different to what you did in the past, but essentially where you are selling into an employer or a product or a service or any different group. We'll get into all of that. And so I decided to pull together some of the experts in my world and beyond it who have been doing this for a long time and can really kind of talk through their journey, but also giving some tips. We got a ton of questions at registration for this that we sort of weaved in, but of course there is a Q&A and feel free to ask any questions and we will try to both respond to them or do follow-ups. So yeah, with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. It looks like we have a pretty even amount. I think I can share this. Maybe you guys can see it. But so at least on our end, there's about 55% of you thinking about getting into the consulting or freelance world. 21% just started and 24% been doing it but want to grow. So this is great. Okay, so with that, I'm just going to go around from the way I see it. We'll start with Sylvie Spector. Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and maybe even include in that how long you've been doing this or when you switched over?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Sylvie. I have always been in the tech marketing space, mostly early stage tech. Started my career at Lemonade, that like millennial insurance company, and moved on to a couple other early stage companies before going freelance. I decided to do it because when my company went through layoffs and I had to be on the other side of laying people off of actually, you know, firing people and just needing to deal with the aftermath of the vibes in the company, I was like, this is not it. I want to have my like control of sort of my own destiny. Also, I just had an entrepreneurial bug and wanted to start something. And I went not really knowing if I was going to like it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give myself 6 months. If I don't like it, I will go back in house. And now I have been doing it for 2 years and never looking back. So that's me. Nice to meet you guys.
Amazing. And we'll hear a lot more about that from Sylvie. Okay, and then I'll go to Erin. Tarver.
Yeah, hi everyone and welcome. So excited to see over 80 people here. That's really exciting. My name is Aaron. I'm a marketing consultant, also working primarily within the tech industry, and founder of Morningside Growth. Yeah, I work with a lot of my clients, helping to advise them on their user acquisition and retention strategy. And I decided to make the leap about 4 years ago. At the time, I was leading member growth in-house for a mental health startup during the pandemic, and it was busy to say the least. And also while doing that, I was juggling some pretty large meatballs in my non-work life. My mom had been recently diagnosed with cancer, so I was acting as a caregiver for her. And my wife and I were expecting the birth of our first child, so I was trying to mentally, physically, spiritually prepare myself for that shift. So I initially, set out and left my role with the intention of, consulting part time, keep the lights on while I had more time to focus on my family and reassess and figure out what I wanted to do with my next step. But then I quickly realized a few months in that I loved doing this. I love the flexibility. I love the autonomy, and then also um, just the diversity of work experiences, getting to work across multiple businesses. And fast forward to today, I have no plans to go back in house. So this has been just extremely instrumental and needed for kind of rebalancing my work, my family life, and then my work and my career aspirations.
Love it. Amazing. And then Elles Skony is our third guest.
Yes, thank you for having me. I miss the emojis. Like I want to be clapping for
Yes.
Sylvie and Aaron. Hi, yes, I'm Ellis. So I went out on my own almost 2 years ago now. I think next week is technically my business birthday for 2 years. So my background is HR, head of people, chief people officer in high growth, mission driven startups in tech, SaaS, advertising, marketing, and e-commerce and CPG. And so I was chief people officer at my last in-house role, and we had to make some changes to the business and get smaller, pivoted into chief of staff, did that role for a little while, wearing all the hats. And then we got even smaller. And so put myself on the list and pivoted actually into fractional with that client. So they were my first client, my last in-house, which I'm grateful for because there's a comfort level there with who you know and the information you have. And throughout that, I had a couple months where I knew I was going to be flipping. And so did the career curiosity tour, as I like to call it, and talked to anyone and everyone that I knew. I wish there were calls like this at that time. But yeah, talked to everyone I knew and found that a lot of my peers were starting to do the same thing or talk to people who had been doing it. I also interviewed for full-time and networked with recruiters. And I was given great advice in the beginning of my curiosity tour of like lean into abundance and just follow I have a background in conscious leadership, so follow the full body yes. And I was having the full-time interviews, and I found like I wanted the next interview because I want them to like me, and I'm a competitive person, but not necessarily because I wanted to like throw myself 150% into another person's company in that moment. So I decided, hey, wouldn't it be cool if instead of that company's swag, my kids could wear my own? And so decided to get the LLC up and running and got my next client and my next client, and the universe took me there. So similarly, I cannot imagine going back. I also started Fractional People People during my journey as well, which is a community of people like me, I guess. So yeah, that's my journey in a nutshell, but have been loving the flexibility and the immense amount of learning that comes with this career. I love.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's both what a lot of people who registered for this are seeking. And then everyone I know on the other side justifies that that is the truest part of it. So, okay. So I wrote down a bunch of questions that I'm going to ask you all and we'll float through this, but I wanted to start with a little bit of the obvious questions. So there's a lot of different like questions about what's the difference between consulting, freelance, advising, fractional work. So I wanted to hear from each of you just about how you would categorize yourself in each of these and what you find the differences to be, because I know some of you even do multiple parts, like you consult and advise. And then by way of it, just like some of the challenges with each of those roles that we'll get into sort of more naturally. So I'm actually going to go back to you, Ellis, because I know you do the fractional work and the advising and sort of
Mhm.
like pivoted. So it'd be great to hear how you did it and how you think about that when you make scope of work and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the thing to start with is clients don't really care what you call it, which is an important piece of it, but it's helpful to define it. And so I have all three types of clients actually. And so there is like fractional chief people officer work, which means I am embedded in a client. And I think embedded is probably the biggest piece for me that stands out in the sense of, you know, I'm in their Slack, I'm in their email, I'm part of the team, I'm on their website even. I might have some like dotted line or direct reports. So you're really part of the team. You're just doing it at not a full-time 40-hour a week or 80-hour a week period. And so companies who are in stages of change or growth, they might be small companies. That's like the classic example, right? Where you need a head of people, but you don't or can't afford a full-time. So you bring in like a combination of people. It could be larger companies who just need like you know, a fractional learning and development executive type of thing where it's more expertise. So fractional though is really that you are part of the team in that way, in the embedded way. I also have clients where I am only advisory for them. So I meet with the leadership team. You know, I might have an email for access, but like employees don't know me. I'm not part of their company. I am an advisor in that way, but it's ongoing. It's not necessarily scope based. And I'm there as a thought partner as they're evolving and changing because of my expertise and background. And then the way that I do consulting would the easiest example is I'll facilitate a company's team offsite. I'll go, it's a specific scope, project fee. I'll go and do the consulting, you know, job or gig. And it's not necessarily like ongoing or you know, but it's more project based in that way. So that's how like my clients work. I know there's also more on the consulting and freelance side that interweave a bit, but that's how I think of it.
Yeah. And just as one follow-up question before I move on to someone else, how did you think about translating your work? So I think one of the things that most people get hung up on is maybe they are in HR right now. Let's say they do a
Mhm.
people ops role and they would love to go out and do consulting or advising or one of those, but they're like, what exactly would I be selling? Like, how did you think about your last job and
Yeah.
how to translate that into what you could tell, like you translate it into the, hey, I can do offsites, you know, like how did you think
Yeah.
about that?
It's really interesting because I just I got together with a bunch of women who are doing fractional work, and someone took us through like our pitch essentially. And during that process, you know, I was like, "Oh, what's my pitch? How do I explain myself?" And they're like, "Well, what did you do? You know, or why do clients hire you?" It's like, "Oh, well, they like having a strategic thought partner." Well, what was your career? Well, I was a strategic HR business partner for executives in companies. Okay, so now you're a strategic HR business partner, but you do it on a fractional consulting or advisory basis. Like it is what you have done before.
Mhm.
You're just able to do it in a more flexible way. Like I've done team offsites as the chief people officer. And so it's just being able to find the people who need it and saying, hey, you don't actually have to hire me as your CPO. I can just do an offsite for you. But
Yeah.
it's using all your past experience because I think that's the really unique thing about this solopreneur. You're selling your brain and your experience.
Yeah, exactly. Erin, why don't I go over to you next and maybe you could, as you talk about, you know, the what you call yourself a consultant or whatnot, how you also went in-house, because I know you work with a lot of similar companies you did before you were a consultant, now that you are. So talking about that transition would be awesome.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the way that Ellis framed it, I think is perfect. It's, you know, leveraging your background, your expertise, in a way to help you find your first clients, and then really trying to define what it is that you're going to be doing. My first client was actually my old team at that mental health startup that I had talked about. When I left, they still needed a whole lot of leadership and support, so I was able to help them out fractionally, and that provided for me a great runway to get, you know, a fairly sizable client, you know, within my book, and then I could go figure out ways to help supplement it. But in terms of, how to define kind of consulting versus freelance versus advising, Ellis talked a lot about kind of like level of presence, how embedded are you in the company, how involved are you? I think it's also a spectrum of both strategy and execution, which Ellis had started to talk about as well. Freelance, and again, these are not universal perfect definitions, but I'd say freelance on that spectrum tends to orient more around execution, getting your hands on the dirt, actually building things, executing campaigns, running things versus consulting and advising. Obviously, at the far end of the spectrum will be more focused on strategy and helping to provide that thought partnership and some of that leadership for your clients. And me with what I'm doing, I found that the type of work that I'm doing with my clients is going to vary widely depending on who it is that I'm working with. A lot of the early stage startups that I work with, they might have very lean marketing teams in house. So, in an ideal world, I would love to be able to come in and, be largely focused on strategy and helping to guide from kind of a high level. But if there aren't resources in place, I've been, finding that, an area where I can provide value for my clients is actually doing some of the execution as well. So it tends to blend. I found my sweet spot in, let's say, being 70-60% strategy versus the remainder being in execution, but still feeling like my feet are firmly planted in both worlds.
Right. Awesome. And Sylvie, what about you?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't want to repeat anything that you guys said. You guys said so much great stuff. I think just a couple of things that I would want to add is kind of like what each of these terms kind of signifies to clients. And again, like don't overthink it. That's like my main message. But when you say fractional versus consultant, fractional to me means like, very much committing a good percentage of your time to them. And I think fractional elevates the expectation around like leadership and involvement, whereas consultant is a little bit more balanced in terms of like your involvement. And then I think consultant and fractional advisor are all communicate something senior leadership. I think freelance is a bit more executional and a bit more junior. And then another category that we haven't discussed here is like having an agency. And a lot of people, agency signifies having more than one person and having a team. But I do think that people think that agency means it's going to be more expensive. You're going to be working with a lot of different people. And so personally, I have enjoyed calling myself a consultant, even though I do have people on the back ends that I work with because they really just get me and I'm the only one who's client facing. So I think that you can still maintain the consulting bit while having contractors. Yeah, I think that's what I would add.
Yeah.
And I can add context on my comment of like clients don't care what it's called. Just because I say that only because like most, if not majority of our business comes from warm leads or referrals, which we'll get into. And so you're having the conversation. They're not necessarily usually saying, oh, she does fractional or consulting or advisory. It's like, I have an HR need. Great. Let's figure out what the need is. Then we can define it. And so that's what I mean by clients don't care. It's like they have a need, you can fill it and then you can define it in that way and the contract scope and all those things. But they come to you because they have a need for your background and experience.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so the obvious and most number one question we got from people who registered was, how do you find clients? And I know that's a really like big question to answer just because it is so different and there's different strategies. But I'm going to ask you all, like, tell me a little bit about how you each found your first client, which some of you touched on a little bit in terms of how you left in-house and sort of tested the waters. But like, maybe you could also put it in context of if there's been maybe a company you really loved and like more of like your first cold reach out, like how you went about doing that. And then likewise, how much you really tie in social media and like that sort of presence into it, like questions about, do I need to be an influencer? How far is a website? So I don't know, as you go through your questions, I think let's just try to weave in some of that that's coming through in the Q&A is just, you know, how do you find clients, but also like if you were in the position of needing to do cold reach out, like how might you approach it? And maybe Sylvia, I know you're like nodding your head, so maybe you have an idea of how you did that.
I just love this topic. And I didn't mention that I also run a community of marketing consultants. And
Yeah.
so this is just like the biggest topic. And I have so much to say on it, but I'll try to stay concise. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat or we can chat after. But okay, what I did and what I always tell people is first thing you want to do is even before you do a LinkedIn announcement, like while you're kind of figuring out all of your stuff, is go through every single LinkedIn connection you have and make a list of like who you want to reach out to. And it can be in a couple different buckets. Some of them are going to be people that you're going to get advice from that you're more comfortable with when you're first defining your offering, but kind of putting your name out there and like kind of getting that initial feedback around what you're doing. And then it's going to be the people that you are going to kind of want to impress. And these people can be people who work at your ideal client, people who work in your industry but have worked with you, people who work at people who refer business to your ideal client, like venture capital firms. And I've always found that like previous coworkers are kind of going to be the best people to reach out to because they can most effectively vouch for your work. I think the more nervous a message makes you to send, the more you should send it, because those tend to be like the highest impact conversations. I think you get a lot of your clients from like those loose ties that are loosely connected to you. So make that list, right? And then announce what you're doing on LinkedIn. I know it's scary, but you have to do it. And so that's how I got my first client, is making that announcement. And then one of my old coworkers reached out to me and said, I'm so happy to see that you're doing this. Let's chat. I have something for you. I had not gone in-house with my previous employer. I'd never had a freelance client before. But like, what I would do is do your rounds with literally everyone you're connected to. You also want to end your calls with who else should I talk to? Who else you have to connect me with? And the more clear that you can be on exactly who you work for and what you do, the better, because people need to be able to refer you. If you say, yeah, I'm a marketing consultant for tech startups, it's like, there are so many of those, it's like I work with very early stage companies to build out their marketing foundations when they don't have any marketing and they don't have any marketing help. Like that's very specific and people can refer to you. And so while you're doing those coffee chats and asking for more connections, you also really want to be posting on LinkedIn. I know LinkedIn's scary. I know it's like really intimidating, but I think you can't wait until you feel comfortable to do it. I think you need to do it even amidst the discomfort. And LinkedIn is really good for two things. Like one is just for reminding your existing network what you're doing. And that you're here so that when they have somebody for you, they'll know. And so I know that all the referrals that I've gotten really also do happen because they see me on LinkedIn. And then it also does help escape your echo chamber and build credibility with people who don't know you already. So those are two. And then my last recommendation for getting clients is joining these Slack communities. Obviously, I'm biased because I run one, but even not through my own, even through other Slack communities, like I'm getting clients. I even create Zapier like automations where I get emails if people post in a community with keywords with roles that I'm looking for. So I don't need to check the communities all the time. I can just see when like there are relevant posts, and you want to reach out right away because people get a lot of messages about those, and really tailor your message directly to like what the person is looking for. Okay, that was a lot.
I
But
love
that's
that.
what I would say.
I love that. I'm like Googling like Zapier. Like I have so much fun with the AI stuff, but that's amazing. I love that.
Sylvie's automation savvy.
Yeah. We need more of Sylvia's automation.
I'll talk to you all about it.
That's great. I'm just gonna go back around the circle. Then maybe Erin, talk a little bit about yours. And again, like I love how you play into social media, but also like your old network, and then just anything that you would do if there was like a client you wanted to cold reach out to, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, reiterating a lot of what Sylvia was speaking to because it was incredibly useful for me. It's lean on your network, especially in the beginning. My first client, as I had mentioned before, was my old team. I'd say even my first 3, 4, 5 clients were either people that I had worked with previously at any of my former companies or word of mouth recommendations from consulting clients who then referred me to other folks within their network. So the relationships go an extremely long way, and I am not necessarily an extroverted relationship person, you know, by my internal fabric. So it's kind of a muscle that I'm continually intentionally flexing, because it does go an extremely long way, in terms of not just, you know, netting yourself new business, but being able to stay up to date on a lot of the latest and greatest, you know, best practices within whatever field you're working within. Just being able to speak to, you know, folks that are very deep within your network just goes an extremely long way. And then, you know, Sylvia talked about also, you know, speaking with, let's say, VCs and other investors. That's also been another referral channel for myself. That's been really strong. But in terms of, in addition to investors, what are other consultants that operate, you know, tangentially to you and what you would be doing? You know, can you again build relationships there, because those are also potential sources of business to you. I've had multiple clients that have been referred to me because somebody was embedded with a client already, also doing either fractional advisement or consulting, but their client needed work in my area of expertise, so then they kicked it over to me. So, you know, in addition to, you know, just tapping your no network, how can you also cultivate relationships with, you know, investors or other consultants and agencies, um, and have that be done in kind of a co-symbiotic way where it
Mhm.
makes sense. And then, you know, they certainly appreciate the referrals that you would be giving back to them. So that I've also found to be really helpful. And then Helena, I think I'm the wrong person to ask when it comes to social media. I am
Mhm.
not super active on LinkedIn when it comes to, you know, making posts and putting up content. I do leverage the platform a ton to again help just check in on folks and really just refresh my network and making sure I'm continuing to build ties both with people I already know, but also reaching out to potential clients that fit my ICP. It's been really helpful in that regard. But um, I haven't dedicated a ton of time on, you know, really having a robust content strategy on the platform there. But again, I've been finding a lot of success and just really relishing the relationships that I've been able to build.
Yeah. And I think that's like an important key thing to know is that you don't have to have a social presence to be successful by any means. I mean, I did consulting when I first jumped into it. I didn't make a website. You don't have, you definitely don't have to do it. I think it's more about, to Sylvie's point, like making your work known in whatever capacity you think your network's going to be there. So like if you have a good network on LinkedIn, definitely try to make it there. If you join a Slack community, it's there. If you do in person or, you know, whatnot. And Ellis, you could talk about that too. But, and I know Ellis runs a really great community too. So maybe you'll talk about that. But yeah, good.
Yeah, I think you know, I've had a lot of with FPP, and I know Sylvie does the same. We have like experts come in and talk about strategies and things like that. And I think what I'm continuously that's coming up for me is like really at the core, we're talking about like building trust and relationships. And so even as Sylvie was talking, like because a lot of the questions I get is like, well, what do I talk to the people about? Right. Like I'm reaching out. What do I talk about? And it's like, it feels very simple, but you are literally just building relationships. Like you are authentically, and if you're not doing it authentically, people know you are genuinely and truly just trying to create relationships and build trust with people. And so that's why the first place you start is people who already trust your work because you are selling your work. So, and it's also not a volume game because if you're, you know, when you're doing fractional or consulting or advising, you can't have hundreds of clients. You know, you can have 3, 4, maybe 5, depending on the slices and dices of your bandwidth or if you're subcontracting, but it's not like a huge volume game like having a tech solution is, right? And so you kind of have to throw out the playbook of the cold lead gen and think about like, how do I build trust with my audience or with people or potential clients or people who know potential clients. And so any lens, anytime you're thinking about, should I do a LinkedIn post or should I have the coffee chat? Like, I think that's a good anchor question of like, how is this building trust with my network? And content is you trying to build trust with people that you aren't able to meet in person, right? Or like have a conversation with. So if you're putting out an article on your thought leadership, or you're doing a podcast and you're talking about your expertise, you are, through way of them watching, building trust with them. So that's like always the goal, because we are in like a very trust-based occupation. We start quickly with companies and they hand us their babies, especially in HR. Like, I remember Anessa Fike is a fractional coach, and she said this to me in the beginning, and I was like, aha, like they're trusting you so much with really important pieces of their company very quickly, because that's the beauty of fractional. And so they need to have trust in you. And that's why network, that's why referrals, that's why all these things are mentioned, because referrals are the way for you to have that like transfer of trust in the best way. Or your network is the way for them to transfer trust, and then staying present so that people who trust you see that you're available and think of you. That's why you want to get in front of them. So that's just like how I kind of think of the lens of like, if it's a good use of your time, it should be building your trust and credibility, with your potential network or clients. I would say for the cold outreach question, like if you just want to get in front of someone and you've extended past your network, you're looking to build trust with a new network, basically, is what you're talking about. I think like providing something of value is always a go-to, like really being thoughtful about who you're reaching out to and how you can connect them with someone who's valuable to them, or how you can provide them with, a free like assessment of something. Basically, how can you provide value or support to the people that you're reaching out to in an authentic way? And I'm just going to keep harping on that because sales is sales. But yeah, how you can create value for the person you're reaching out to, because otherwise you're literally just asking them to give you their time to give you their time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, maybe we could touch on this quickly before we go to like our last part about community and kind of how you use that to help with your pricing and everything like that. But there was a question that came through I thought was good. And that part of the question was about, a fear of whether or not I'll be able to deliver the value I'm promising, and like figuring out the scope of service. So, I mean, I'll actually touch on this one super quickly, because I can talk about like a mistake I made in one of my earlier consulting things, where I had a client ask me to do something, and one of it involved a ton of introductions to my network. And it was something I didn't really feel comfortable doing, but I agreed to it. And like, that's the key right there. Like there's a certain thing, if you do something and you are so good at it and you're confident and you're like, I could do this in my sleep, like that should be your scope. Anything that kind of makes you a little nervous, or like you're not sure and you wouldn't have included it unless they asked, like I would take that out, or be really candid and clear about it. Because I think that as long as you are putting together your scope in the things that you're a rock star at doing, like you're going to be able to deliver it, as long as the timelines and everything's mapped out and like makes sense. But try to steer away from them asking for things outside of maybe a scope you proposed, like an additional thing, and being like, okay, I could probably do that, because that is where you will fall short. And I don't know if you guys
or bring someone else in who has done it before.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think that's sorry. And I know I was just talking. So Sylvia, I want you to
No,
go
no,
next, because I saw, that is one thing that is really important, especially because we are pitching ourselves and like our talent and skill sets, is, like, I had someone once who said like, I want to do fractional director work. Right. And I said, well, have you ever been a director before? No, I haven't been a director before. And I was really kind of clear in the sense of like, clients are not paying you to learn and develop into something. That is what your in-house, or, that's what that experience is for. And so you selling it, if you haven't done it, is not really representing what the client's paying, a premium for. So focus on like what you do know and where your strengths are and where you have proven yourself. And that's going to be like the most, win-win space for it. Sorry, Sylvia, I know you were going off my last one.
Yeah, about outreach.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I just wanted to just elaborate a little bit too on like kind of those networking conversations, because they are seriously so valuable. I just want to share a couple of quick tips. Like one is that I really, just like Alice said, it's like about leading with authenticity and genuine relationships. And so when I reach out to people, people who I know, I just do it with like, hey, it's been so long. I'd love to catch up. I want to hear what you're up to. Like, let's have a coffee. Like, I really don't recommend reaching out and selling your services like through the message because they just feel like they're hopping on another sales call. So I would really just come at it from a genuine interest in them. And then I would, when you have the conversation, like lead with curiosity, ask about them, ask about how they are, make them feel, make them feel great. And then, try not to talk about yourself too much and like your own business. Obviously, make sure they know who you work for and what you do. And then, of course, just try to offer value on the call. The more advice that you can give and like kind of demonstrate like, what you do and like what you're good at, the better. But yeah, I definitely would just steer clear around like trying to sell via the outreach. Just have
Mhm.
genuine, like, I just want to catch up.
Yeah.
That's so
Go ahead, Erin.
important. And I don't know about everyone's, inbox and LinkedIn, message center. Mine is littered with cold
Oh,
outreach from, consultants or services trying to sell you something. So all just goes back to so important to build the relationship in an authentic way, establish the trust because your success rate with just doing cold outreach where you're very salesy up front is going to be pretty low. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
And then like another thing too is like it's also about kind of maintaining those relationships because you don't want it to be just like okay one call and then you don't speak with them again. So what I do is like even if you post on LinkedIn or not, this is a great thing to do of like setting a notification, kind of subscribing to their LinkedIn. And so if they're posting or their company's posting, just comment on their stuff. Oh my God, congratulations. Love to see that you're doing this. Just like be their cheerleader so your name kind of pops up and so does your expertise. It's a great way to just kind of like stay up to date with them even a year after that call because usually like I'll get referrals 6 months to a year
Mhm.
after I have like an initial conversation with somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's
Keeping them
also
in mind.
like,
Yeah. Go ahead.
sorry, just to like reflect out loud as you guys are talking through like the strategies. It's like that's also the awesome part about all of this is like you are like literally your job now is to like just build fun relationships and like support other people. Like how
Yeah, it's the
wonderful is that?
best.
Like that's the
So true.
strategy.
Totally.
So true.
Yeah. And keep in touch with them because, as things like evolve and their needs
Yeah.
change,
Yeah.
like you can always say how things are going. And I've tried to do that with other consultants I've met too, right? Like it's not just, I think the networking's not just, we talked about the community side, but the networking's not just about checking in on your clients, but checking in on like your peer consultants, because those are
Mhm.
ones where it's like, how's business been going? And then oftentimes when I send those notes, they're like, I was actually just about to ping you because I saw that,
Mhm.
and so I think that's like a really great part of it, which kind of transitioned us into our last question. And we've been trying to get through some of the ones in the chat too, and we'll follow up on some of this. But given like we talked a lot about the community and Sylvie and Els have sort of downplayed, they run these like amazing communities in different areas, like the Fractional People, as Ellis mentioned, and Sylvie with her marketing community. And I know Erin, you talked about some groups too. So could you talk a little bit about that? Because I do think all these questions that are coming in the chat of like, how do you find your pricing? Like, how do you decide a rate? Like, I think a lot of that really does come from community and your peers because I was taught how to calculate what should be a good rate and I went out to market, but it wasn't until I joined a community that people were like, you are severely like undercharging or like you shouldn't, so
Mhm.
I would love to hear more about that. Any of you can really jump in first.
I wish I
Yeah,
could.
sure.
Oh, go
Oh
ahead.
no, go. You go, you go, you go.
I was just gonna say, I wish I could see the chat. I just want, I can't see the chat, so please keep those things coming.
Yes.
Um, the community aspect of it, fractional people is all HR solopreneurs, so HRpreneurs as we call ourselves. And if we're thinking about, I mean, the feedback that I got when I started going out on my own, when I talked to people who were on their own, was like, it's great. I love it. I love the flexibility, all the things, but it's really lonely. And I was like, cool, let's hang out. So that's how it started. Let's like hold each other accountable. Let's have like coworkers because you lose your coworkers, which is whether you notice it presently or not, like a really big part of your life inside of a company and also a strategy of retention, right? Like the more you, the net promoter scores of companies coming from my HR brain, like if you know your company is doing well, it's because everyone has a best friend at work, right? Like, and so you are really in your company and those things are evolving and changing. But at the core, like when you go out on your own, you lose that, right? So you're now sitting in your office by yourself, creating relationships all day, because that's the beauty of our occupation. But you don't have the quick gut checks, or you don't have the quick questions. And a lot of the times, like, your family or friends like understand what you're doing, but they're not in it with you. So FPP is that for the HRpreneurs, right? Like, people who get it. We're in there. We kind of function like coworkers in that way, where we ask for quick gut checks when we're on the phone. Like, I've asked for a gut check while on the phone with a client and gotten a response, like, am I thinking about this the right way? And then for pricing, pricing is no different than how you would like price a full-time role in a company. So coming obviously from HR and from benchmarking and compensation, like, look at the experience that you have. Look at your industry that you're pitching to, look at the company size, the series that they're in. There's no like magic number. Like, if you're a consultant, you're 250 an hour. Like, that just isn't the reality, because compensation is dependent on your own experience and expertise. It's dependent on the role and the work that you're doing. So if you're going to be a fractional head of people, but it's really executional, that's going to cost less than a chief people officer who's really strategic, because that's how the company should be thinking about that, right? So FPP as a community is helpful because we can get feedback on our pricing. And I just recently like did the, what is it called? Live coding, or the vibe coding. Vibe coding. Thank you. To create like a bot off of a comp survey we did. So there's tools and resources like that just help you, see around the corner a little further. But at the core, that's what we're talking about. Every client's going to be assessed like that.
Okay, so much to say. Where do I start? Okay, so first of all, with the Growth Tribe, I really started it because I needed it, like going freelance and being like, who are my people? What do I do? What should I do for a contract? What are my rates? What am like, there's so many questions that everyone has right now. And like, you really just need other people who have gone through it to answer your questions. And everyone has different experiences, everyone has different perspectives. So that's why I started the Growth Tribe. And we actually do have like a pricing database as well that like it's actually so granular, because pricing, you're not going to price the same way across every client. Like, honestly, I price based on what I think the client will be able to afford, and also based on like supply and demand. If I really need a new client, then I'll price a little bit lower. If I have too many clients, I'll price way higher. And then also I price based on like how big the project is. So it's kind of like economies of scale. So it's like, you have your typical rate for 5 to 8 hours a week. I'm just like telling you my specific situation. 5 to 7 hours a week. If it's less than 5, it's going to be 15% higher. If it's more than 7, it's going to be 15% lower. So that's a great place to kind of start. And okay, so, and then when it comes to communities and like the reason that they are really great, aside from being able to just get answers to anything, and we also have a pricing like Slack channel and stuff, is it's also a really good way to find clients. I actually just wrote like a guide to getting new clients in the Growth Tribe, because it's not just about like posting and being like, hey, here's my services, like, who has clients for me? Like, it's just not going to work. So aside from like being, really vigilant and watching the channels that people are posting in for open roles, it's also about like first finding the people who outsource what you do and who work in the same kind of space that you do. So I have like a directory where you can just find who those people are, and schedule coffee with them, because like for me, I'm always outsourcing designers. I'm always outsourcing website developers. Like, I don't do those things, or like paid marketing. So I need to have those people that I can bring in. And so find those kind of complementary people in the communities and build relationships with them. And then also become known in the community for what you do. So an example I love using is there's this SEO guy, and he came to me, he's like, can I start an SEO channel? I'm like, sure. He answers every SEO question in the Growth Tribe, and he's messaged me that he's made over $10,000 just from the Growth Tribe, because he's become known for that. And so that's like another really great kind of method to getting clients. Yeah, I'll stop there. That was a lot of info, but I'm happy to answer more questions.
No, that's great. Erin, anything you'd add to that too?
Like I'll add that the SEO guy is great branding. So
exactly.
I mean, I think we've seen this question floated around, and you all were touching on it already, but how to position and how to price yourself. Sylvie, you were mentioning supply and demand of, your own bandwidth, but it's also supply and demand of, your services as a commodity to your
Yeah.
market. So this would be, a huge recommendation to think about how specialized can you become in terms of what you're bringing to the table, because then you can then price a bit higher if there are not a lot of other competing services out there that do exactly what you do. And then I think there was another uh, question that had been floated in the chat, just around, what are some of the different pricing models. At least in my experience, I've seen, three main pricing models, two of which I tend to use a lot more than the other. So, retainer basis, and when I'm working with a client, they'll bring me in to provide fractional support for, 10 hours per week or 20 hours per week. And then once you stack up, a few of those combined, you're then working full-time hours. Separate from, retainer, sometimes you'll have clients that have very specific needs, where they know exactly what they need to get done. That's where I'll be working with clients and structuring the engagement around a specific project-based fee. And then the third one, which I tend to try to stay away from, is doing kind of hourly, kind of invoicing, predetermined hourly rate. You're then getting down into, tracking, hours at a very granular level. It tends to also be more oriented around the kind of tactical execution, freelance work, which I don't find myself doing, all too often. But most often I find, my engagements are structured around retainers or projects, specific projects.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I am trying to keep us kind of on time. I said we go to like 45 after. There's been so many questions. So please get any additional questions you have in the next like couple of minutes, because I will write them down and use them in the follow-up, because I know we've gotten some questions about like specific services you use. So like I can ping the three of you after and we can do like a quick write-up. But if I could ask you just like one final piece of advice for anyone who, like we saw at the beginning, there's a bunch of people here who are on the fence, or maybe they just started and they're like already applying to in-house jobs. Like what piece of advice would you tell them to like do it or keep going?
I have
Right.
I'm gonna give a non-opinion from the perspective of like, it is so individual that it's not all, oh, we're selling. Hey. It is so individual, and like you can only do as much as you can with the information you have in front of you in this moment for your family or situation. I think I just want to make sure everyone knows like not one is better than the other. And I know a lot of people who have been doing fractional and then they went full time with that client because they loved them, and then they went back out to do fractional. Like literally nothing is permanent, and change is the only constant. And so if you have like the full body yes when you're talking to a client for a project or a fractional gig, do it if you have that for the full time. And also, like, if you just need the stability of full time, whatever stability means these days, or you need the benefits because of something going on, that's okay too. Just like make sure you're focusing on how you're managing like your energy and your life. I guess if I'm going all meta, but yeah, there's no one answer. And I love this life and this thing, but I'm a very different person from others. And it's a lot of work. Like I've been hustling the last 2 years. I've worked more than I've ever worked in my life, and I love it. But it's not, just less work for more money all the time. So I just think it's something important you're building a business. There's a lot of other things that go into it, like the LLC, the taxes, the question, that's why community is important for those. But it's, there's just a lot to it. So it's not an easy answer.
Yeah. Very fair. Aaron, what about you?
Yeah, I think, for somebody who's just starting out, which sounds like a majority of the folks are on this call, I would just really make sure that you're investing the time to nail your positioning and just really, hammering home on this is exactly what I'm going to be doing, because everything flows from there. What is your ICP and who are the target clients that you're going to be trying to make inroads with to develop your first client base. It's going to inform your pricing. So, have as many conversations as you can with, folks within your network, people who are doing things similar to what you're doing. Just to having those conversations, you're going to learn so much. That's going to really help you refine, what is your pitch and exactly it is the type of work that you're going to be doing. You'll also learn a lot about, this is the type of work that you'll enjoy doing too, because there's a lot of things that you could be doing, but as narrow as you can make it, just going to help you just operate a bit more efficiently and get off the ground.
And I've had a lot of clients where I learned I didn't like that work too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like it's all a learning. It's literally all learning, which if you like learning,
Always.
it's awesome. If you're more resistant to change, then just be aware.
Yeah, that's like a great kind of segue to what I want to say. Like, honestly, even though we all love it, like consulting is really, really hard. I feel like it's hard mentally, it's hard physically, it's hard in so many ways. And like, I think that you have to be someone who is really adaptable and is kind of always wanting to learn and kind of like question things and evolve and grow. Like, I've had so many hard earns, like learnings and things, projects I realized I don't like, and just kind of always changing my pricing structure and offering. Like I kind of thought it was like, okay, I need to figure it out, and then once I figure it out, I'll have it figured out. And that's so not how it is. Like it's so up and down. Now I'm figuring out a whole new type of like business model that I wasn't thinking about before. So I just think like, you know, do like I think you just need to have a growth mindset, and also just remember, like, if it seems like everyone around you is just like has a million clients and is doing totally fine and you're the only one who doesn't, like, that's so not true. Like, it took me 3 months of like biz dev to, find like, to get enough clients. And, just remember that like there are a lot of people struggling through it too, but it's all about just being like mentally strong and keep going. And I know you can do it. I'm going to give you that like validation.
Yeah. We're all just making it up. You can do it.
Yeah.
we are. It's exactly.
Totally. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I've appreciated getting into consulting though, is exactly that. Like so many people like don't have it figured out, but that's why everyone is asking all these questions and trying to like do the best they can and joining these sessions and joining communities. So it's all relevant. Of course.
Also, like, sorry, one more thing I want to say is like, none of these questions have like a definitive answer. And like, that might be anxiety provoking, but I also kind of want that to be validating. Like, if I ask a question in the growth tribe, how should I price this? I'm going to get 5 different answers and perspectives. Like, it's just kind of like go with your gut on things, and like, just don't wait until you have the perfect answer to just get started. Like, get started, try, learn what works for you, learn your own take on things, and just keep going.
Love it. Amazing. I will follow up with all the resources we talked about. We're going to do a quick summary that I'll be like emailing out to everyone, as well as parts of the recording, and then including things like the communities that were mentioned. I put LinkedIn profiles in here. So a lot of good stuff. I also mentioned in the chat that Ellis is doing a follow-up session for Fractionally Curious. So I put that in there, and that will be in the follow-up. But yeah, I mean, I think the good news is a lot of like, I wouldn't say in this way that sometimes in the corporate world, there's a lot of like, I don't know, secrecy a little bit more about the way strategy is done. I've found, at least in my network, like consultants are very open about this. Like, I don't know any of my friends' salaries in the corporate world, but I know so many of my consultant friend rates, if that
isn't that funny?
So,
yeah.
Yeah. And
that's a good point.
Yeah, because I think it's just people are just like a little bit more open to share and talk, and you don't know how much work they're doing, but they're hourly. So yeah, it's been great. I have been loving it. I hope anyone curious is like this motivated them to do it, but at the same time, as Ellis perfectly said, like it isn't for everyone, and you might find you like doing something. So it's really all trial and error, and as much as you can do to test the waters, I think is the best path before you make a like really big change. So yeah, with that, we will go ahead and end it. But thank you all. I'm sure we'll be doing some sort of follow-up sessions in some capacity, including one. I do know I'm going to do one on like the tax LLC side of it, just like getting some advice for people, because that one is huge. And for sure, I am not qualified to talk about that, but I'm going to be hiring someone to talk about it. So yeah, just stay tuned for all of this. We hope to connect with some of you on LinkedIn, or at least follow along. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Everyone for
Thank
joining.
you so much, guys.
Have a good day, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Hey, everybody.
Bye.